My mother is dying, and I don't have money for the ticket. Hannah said it right at the counter of gate B8, her voice breaking, her hands shaking against the cold surface. This is the third time I've told you, man. The airline employee looked genuinely sorry. The last flight with an open seat is $850, and I can't just give it to you even if I wanted to. Is there really nothing you can do? Hannah asked, her voice cracking. A discount, a payment plan, anything. Believe me, if I could, I already would have, the employee said. It's just not up to me. Hannah didn't have that kind of money. Not on her card, not in her purse, not anywhere in the world. At that hour of the night, she was still wearing her hospital scrubs, her ponytail coming loose, her phone with its cracked screen still lit up from the last call. They already took her in the ambulance, Mrs. Alvarez had told her 16 minutes earlier, her voice breaking. Hurry, sweetheart. I'm here alone and I don't know what else to do. I can offer you the 6 a.m. flight, the employee said, checking the screen for the fourth time with a kindness that couldn't fix anything. That one has a seat on sale, but it doesn't leave for 7 hours. And even that is almost $400, which I don't even have that, Hannah said, squeezing her eyes shut, feeling like her legs could barely hold her up. I already sold what I could over the phone. I already pawned my earrings at the pawn shop by the airport. I don't have anything else. Is there any family member who could wire you something right now? The employee asked with real sympathy. I'm an only child, Hannah said, and my mom is the only family I have left. There's no one else to call at this hour. I'm so sorry, man, the employee said. I really wish I could do more. She looked around desperate. An ATM, someone she knew, a miracle. There was nothing, just the counter and the entire weight of 18 hours crashing down on her all at once. Behind her, the line of passengers shifted impatiently, staring at their phones, everything except the woman in blue scrubs crying next to her suitcase. A man waiting on the nearby bench, a leather briefcase beside him, his suit wrinkled from too many hours in the airport, stood up without hesitation. We'll go together, he said, stepping up beside her at the counter, as if he'd been waiting his whole life for the chance to say exactly that sentence. Hannah turned toward him, tears still running down her face, not quite understanding. I'm sorry, what? We'll go together, the man repeated. I've got a plane waiting in the private hangar, ready to leave in 40 minutes. I was going to fly alone. There's no reason for you to stand here crying at a counter while I take off with empty seats. I don't know you, and at this hour in an airport, that alone should be enough for me to say no, Hannah said, stepping back with the kind of wariness you learn after years working in hospitals. My name is Marcus Whitfield, he said, extending his hand with a calm that didn't match the urgency of the moment. And I'm not asking you to trust me just because I said so. I'm asking you to let me help you because I can and because I won't be able to get on that plane, knowing I left you here standing. And what if this is a trap? Hannah asked, not moving, eyeing the expensive watch on his wrist, the suit that cost more than she made in 2 months of double shifts. Then it's the most expensive, slowest trap I've ever come up with in my life, Marcus said without taking offense. A private jet, a pilot fuel for a 2-hour flight, and nothing to gain in return. If you want to be suspicious, but do it while we walk because every minute counts. Why would you do this for a total stranger? She asked, wiping her face with the back of her hand, still not quite letting her guard down. People don't just hand over a plane like that. I'm not handing it to you, Marcus said. I'm offering it. That's different. I was already flying to Denver anyway for work, and believe me, an empty seat on that plane costs me nothing extra. The only thing it'll cost me is not having offered. If I find out tomorrow that you sat here until 6 in the morning because you wouldn't accept, this still sounds like something I shouldn't accept from a stranger in an airport, Hannah said, though her voice had lost its earlier firmness. You have every right to be cautious, Marcus said without any offense in his voice. In your shoes, I'd doubt me too. But I'll give you my full name, my company's number, my assistant's number, if you want to verify it. And you decide. The only thing I'm asking is that you decide fast, because every minute you stand here doubting is a minute your mother doesn't have. That last part hit Hannah like a bucket of cold water, more effective than any other argument. But then she thought of her mother, alone, hours away, and a lifetime of pride broke apart right there at gate B8. "Her name is Diane," Hannah said, her voice still shaking. "My mom had a heart attack this afternoon and she's in the ICU in Denver, and I've been 18 hours without sleep trying to get to her, and I already spent everything I had on the first leg of the trip and I have nothing left." Not a dollar, not an idea of what else to do. "And what do you do, if you don't mind me asking?" Marcus said. "You're wearing scrubs." "I'm a nurse," Hannah said, "at the County General Hospital. I just got off a 12-hour shift when they called me." "Then you understand better than anyone what these minutes mean right now," Marcus said. "Let's go." "Wait," Hannah said, still not moving. "Are you sure I don't know you? And you don't know me either?" "I know your mother's name is Diane, that she's in the ICU, and that you've been up 18 hours straight trying to get to her side," Marcus said, picking up her small suitcase before she could protest. "That's enough for me. We're going to Denver now. There's nothing else to decide." "Right this way, Mr. Whitfield," the counter employee said, a sudden flicker of recognition in her voice, pointing to the door that led straight to the private tarmac. "Have a good flight." The two of them walked through that door together, leaving behind the impossible weight that just a minute earlier had felt to Hannah like the end of everything. "Thank you. I don't even know what else to say," Hannah said, walking beside him down the corridor next to a stranger who had just changed the worst night of her life without asking for anything in return. "Don't thank me yet," Marcus said with a brief, almost sad smile. "Thank me when we land in time." They walked out through a glass corridor straight onto the tarmac. Hannah walked fast, feeling like she was finally moving towards something, not just running away from something. "How much farther?" she asked, watching the lights of a hangar get closer at the end of the hallway. 2 minutes on foot, Marcus said. 10 more minutes for the crew to finish prepping the plane. It's going to move fast, Hannah, I promise you." It was the first time he'd said her name, and strangely, it steadied her more than any other promise he'd made that night. The private hangar smelled like jet fuel and cold night air. The small white plane lights, already on, sat on the tarmac as if it had been waiting just for her. "Do you always fly like this?" Hannah asked, climbing the stairs, still not quite able to believe what was happening. "When I need to be in 2 places in one day," Marcus said without giving it any more weight than necessary, as if flying private were as ordinary as catching a bus. Inside the pale leather seats and the quiet cabin were so different from her world that for a moment she felt like she'd stepped into someone else's life. An older man in a cap and uniform poked his head out from the cockpit before closing the door. "Captain Reyes," he introduced himself with a brief smile. "We'll take off as soon as the young lady's settled. Weather looks calm halfway through the flight. After that, we'll see what Denver sends our way. But we'll get there, I promise you that." "How long is the flight, Captain?" Hannah asked. 50 minutes if the weather cooperates," Reyes said. "Less time than it would have taken you just to find the right commercial gate at this hour." "Is the weather going to be a problem?" Hannah asked. "A little turbulence in the middle, nothing this plane can't handle," Reyes said. "I've flown through worse. You just buckle up when I tell you to, and we'll get there." "Thank you, Captain," Hannah said, still not quite believing that sentence was meant for her. The captain went back to the cockpit. Hannah, finally sitting down, felt the weight of the last 18 hours settle onto her without having to run to another counter. "I'm a nurse," she said, sitting clutching her bag to her chest, that old bag worn thin at the straps, her stethoscope coiled up next to her keys, and her nearly empty wallet. "I work at the County General Hospital. 12-hour shifts, sometimes doubles when we're short-staffed, which is almost always." "Take this for the cold," said the flight attendant, offering her a blanket. Hannah, who had spent years being the one who offers the blanket and never the one who receives it, accepted in silence. "Thank you," she murmured, wrapping it around her shoulders. "How long have you been a nurse?" Marcus asked, while the plane finished prepping for takeoff. 6 years, Hannah said. "I started at a private practice, then moved over to the ER at the hospital. Last week, I had a 16-hour shift straight because of a gas explosion at an apartment building, and I don't even remember when I last ate that day. It's the kind of job where you learn not to think about yourself because there's no time, and because there's always someone worse off who needs that energy more than you do. Do you like what you do? Marcus asked. Most days, yeah, Hannah said. The bad days, I don't ask myself, I just do it. Why'd you switch? Marcus asked. Because I wanted something steadier, more manageable, Hannah said. At that private practice, I learned fast that you only treat the people who can pay for the visit, and that never sat right with me. In the ER, at least, whoever walks in gets seen. No one asks first how much is in their wallet. That's where I learned to keep some distance without stopping caring. It's the only way to last in this job. And who takes care of the one who takes care of everyone else? Marcus asked with a simplicity that touched something in Hannah she hadn't expected to be touched that night. Nobody usually, she said with a short laugh, no humor in it. You get used to it. And your mom lived in Denver. She moved out there 3 years ago when she retired from the plant, Hannah said. I stayed here for work. I'd call her every Sunday. Did she know about her heart? Marcus asked. Or did this come out of nowhere? We knew for 2 years, Hannah said, her voice tightening. They found an arrhythmia during a routine checkup. We kept an eye on it over the phone. Mrs. Alvarez would check her blood pressure with a monitor I mailed her, and I'd go over the numbers every Sunday. The cardiologist kept pushing her to get surgery, but she always said no, that she felt fine, that she wasn't going to let anyone cut open her chest for something that didn't even hurt. And what did you tell her? To trust the doctor, Hannah said. I told her 1,000 times, but I also understand why she said no. My dad died during a surgery years ago, and ever since my mom's had a fear of it that no medical explanation could shake. As a nurse, I knew exactly what the risks were of not operating, and I still couldn't talk her into it. Sometimes knowing isn't enough. She closed her eyes for a moment as if she could still hear the call from that same afternoon. Hannah, run. Something happened to your mom in the kitchen? She repeated, Mrs. Alvarez's voice still lodged in her ears. I already called the ambulance, but I'm here alone and I don't know what else to do. And you ran? I ran, Hannah said with a bitter laugh. I ran to the bank first to pull out what I had saved, which wasn't much. I ran to the bus station, and when I saw the bus would take 9 hours, I ran to the airport to buy a flight. That's where the money ran out, literally. She paused a second, breathing deep before finishing. The money ran out right at the counter of gate B8. Marcus listened to her with an attentiveness that struck Hannah as unusual for a man who solved his problems with a single phone call. And there's no one else who could help you? He asked. Siblings? Any other family? I'm an only child, Hannah said. My dad died when I was 15. Ever since then, I've always been the one who takes care of things, the one who shows up at other people's hospitals and knows exactly what to ask, what to push for, how to read a monitor before the doctor even walks in the room. But when it comes to my own mom, I don't know how to ask for help. I never have. It's like my job is to take care of people, and everyone else's job is to be taken care of, and I never get to be on the other side. 2 years ago, she kept looking out the window, I had a bad case of pneumonia, the kind I would have admitted any patient of mine straight to the hospital for. And instead I stayed in my apartment alone, taking my own antibiotics, going to work with a fever because I didn't want anyone to find out I got sick too. It took me a month to fully recover, when it should have taken a week if I'd let someone take care of me. That's how I am about everything. And tonight, at that counter, I felt exactly the same thing, like I was running out of time, and even so, my first instinct was to handle it alone, even though it was impossible. That's not a job, Marcus said with a seriousness that surprised her. It's a way of protecting yourself from needing anyone. And I know that because I have it too. Mine just looks different from the outside. How so? Hannah asked. I protect myself with meetings, Marcus said, with flights, with new projects, with a calendar so full there's no room left to sit down and think about what I lost. You protect yourself by giving. I protect myself by staying busy. In the end, we both end up just as alone, just with different excuses to explain it. Hannah looked at him, waiting for him to say something more, but Marcus just kept watching the airport lights fall behind as the plane taxied toward the runway. "Buckle up," he said instead. "We take off in a minute, and from here to Denver, the only thing you're going to be able to do is wait. So if you want to talk about your mom or anything at all, I'm here. And if you'd rather stay quiet, that's fine too." Marcus's phone buzzed on the armrest, the screen lighting up with names of important people. He flipped it face down without looking at who was calling. "Aren't you going to answer that?" Hannah asked. "Nobody on that list is dying," Marcus said simply. "You have someone who's dying or close to it. That outweighs any meeting." Hannah buckled her seatbelt, hugged her bag to her chest, and for the first time in 18 hours let someone else carry the weight. The plane was already flying level when Marcus broke the silence, his voice lower, more intimate than the one he'd used back in the hangar. "My mom died 4 years ago," he said, without Hannah asking anything. "Cancer. They caught it late, and by the time I found out she had, weeks, not days, I was already overseas, closing a deal that felt, at the time, more important than anything else in the world." Hannah said nothing, just let him keep going. "I took the first flight back the moment I found out," Marcus continued. "But I got there 12 hours too late. 12 hours. My sister was with her the whole time, holding her hand. And I got to the hospital right as they were wheeling her down to the morgue. I never told her I loved her, never thanked her, never said goodbye. I've spent 4 years carrying those 12 hours like they're mine to keep forever." He went quiet for a moment, turning an old, wind-up watch between his fingers, the strap worn thin. "This watch was hers," he said, noticing she'd seen it. "They gave it to me along with her other things at the hospital that same night. Since then, I haven't taken it off. It's the only thing I have left of her that isn't a photo or a memory that's already starting to blur." "I'm so sorry," Hannah said softly. "Really." "And what do you do with yours?" Marcus asked. "Your work watch, I mean. Do you take it off when you leave the hospital?" "Never," Hannah said, almost laughing. "My mom gave it to me when I graduated. She says a nurse without a watch is just a person with a lot of good intentions and no way to organize them." "Sounds like something my mom would have said too," Marcus said, smiling for the first time in several minutes. "That's why when I heard you crying at that counter," Marcus said, turning toward her, "I didn't think it through. It wasn't generosity or charity or anything like that. It was pure selfishness, if I'm being honest. I wasn't going to let someone else live through what I lived through if it was in my power to stop it. I didn't want another plane taking off without the right person on it." Hannah felt something tighten in her chest, different from the fear she'd been carrying all night. "And your sister?" she asked. "Do you two still talk?" "Almost every Sunday," Marcus said. "She never held it against me, which somehow made it worse than if she had. She told me that same day that Mom had asked for me right up until the end. No anger, just asking when I was getting there. I've spent 4 years trying to earn that lack of anger." "And your dad?" she asked carefully. "Still alive," Marcus said, "but we barely talk. After Mom died, we both just retreated into our own thing, me into work, him into his own silence. Sometimes I think we lost both of them that year. It's just that one of them is still breathing." "Coffee or tea?" the flight attendant asked, approaching with a simple tray. "Ham sandwiches, cut fruit, 2 cups of something hot." "Coffee, thanks," Hannah said, and once the attendant walked away, she added, almost laughing, taking a sandwich, "I thought there'd be caviar or something up here." "People assume your taste changes just because your bank account does," Marcus said, taking a genuine bite of his own. "My mom used to make these same sandwiches when I was a kid, same ham every time. She never learned I might like something else better." "And what did your dad eat?" Hannah asked with a smile that was starting, little by little, to feel less forced. "Steak and potatoes, every Sunday, without fail," Marcus said, laughing too. "He still does it. Alone, in that huge house that doesn't make sense for one person anymore. I've offered to have him move in with me 1,000 times. He always says no." So what exactly is it that you do? Hannah asked, changing the subject gently, sensing that Marcus needed a breather just as much as she did. I run a group of companies, he said, without giving more detail, like someone who's learned that talking about money makes people uncomfortable more than it impresses them. Construction, mostly. I use planes like this for work, not to show off, though I know how it looks from the outside. And what do you build? We started with affordable housing 15 years ago, back when it was still my dad's company, Marcus said. Over time, we grew into other things, hospitals, even a couple of them. It's strange to think about right now, but it's possible some of the walls of this very hospital were put up by my company and I never even knew it until tonight. That's really a coincidence, Hannah said. Or maybe it's not a coincidence, Marcus said with a half-smile. Maybe without realizing it, a person ends up building their way back to exactly where they're needed most. I'm cold, Hannah said, wrapping her arms around herself. Marcus, without a word, got up and turned down the air vent, blowing right over her seat. You didn't have to, she started to say. I know, Marcus said, simply sitting back down. But you didn't have to let me help you tonight either, and you did it anyway. Sometimes you just do things because you can, not because you're owed it. That's the second time tonight you've left me without anything to say, Hannah said, laughing quietly, wrapping herself tighter in the blanket the flight attendant had given her at takeoff. This feels like something I'm never going to be able to repay, Hannah said with a tired smile. But tonight I'm more grateful than I can put into words. You don't have to explain anything, Marcus said. Tell me about your mom instead. Talking about her mom loosened something in Hannah's face, and the smile came out full without any tiredness behind it. She always has her hands busy, sewing something, she said. She's so stubborn that once she walked 3 whole blocks with a broken foot just so she wouldn't miss a neighbor's birthday. And ever since I was little, she's said the same thing, that taking care of someone is the highest form of loving them. That's why I became a nurse, to honor that phrase. I never imagined it would weigh on me this much one day. When I was 9, Hannah continued, I broke my arm falling out of a tree, and my mom, instead of panicking, sat right beside me in the ER and explained every single thing the doctor was doing so I'd understand there was nothing to be scared of, that the body knows how to heal itself if you help it along calmly. I think that's where it all started. I wanted to be the one who explains, the one who calms people down, the one who knows. I never wanted to be the one crying without understanding anything, like I was a little while ago at that counter. Maybe both things can be true at the same time, Marcus said. You can be the one who knows and also, once in a while, the one who needs someone else to know for her. And you? Hannah asked. Do you ever let someone know for you? Almost never, Marcus admitted. Tonight's the first time in a long time I've let someone see me without the armor on. I don't even really know why it's you. Maybe it's because we both showed up empty-handed, Hannah said, each in our own way. Hannah didn't answer, but she tucked that sentence away in her chest alongside everything else that night was rearranging about what she believed about herself. They talked like that about their mothers, their fears, until the cabin lights dimmed and the captain announced, "We're starting our approach into Denver." That was exactly when the plane began to shake. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Reyes's voice came over the intercom with the professional calm of someone who's seen worse nights. "We're about to fly through a storm system before landing. Please keep your seatbelts fastened. We'll need to slow down and wait for a window to descend." "How long?" Hannah asked, gripping the armrest, feeling the panic she'd managed to hold back over the last hour come rushing back, all at once. "I don't know," Marcus said, honestly, taking her hand without asking permission, and at this point in the night, neither of them found the gesture strange. "But we are going to land, I promise you that." The plane dropped suddenly, one of those stomach-lurching drops, and Hannah closed her eyes, gripping Marcus's hand tight. "I've watched people die on gurneys," she said, her voice strained. "I've held strangers' hands in their last minutes. But I've never felt this close to my own fear of not making it, of getting stuck halfway to something I still need to finish." Breathe with me, Marcus said with a calm that seemed pulled from somewhere well-trained, even if he didn't say so. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. I'm telling you this because someone taught it to me once on a flight a lot worse than this one. Hannah breathed with him, counting silently. The air, at least, was still something she could control when everything else was slipping away. The plane shuddered again, lightning splitting the sky, and Hannah grabbed her phone, desperately dialing Mrs. Alvarez, hoping for confirmation that her mother was still there. No signal. "Nothing's going through," she said, her voice breaking, staring at the phone screen without a single bar. "I've been trying for 10 minutes and nothing's going through." "Can't you do anything?" she asked, turning to Marcus with a desperation that wasn't fair but came out anyway. "You've got planes, you've got connections, you've got a direct line to anyone, and you can't make this storm move? Make this plane fly faster? She stopped, ashamed of herself, covering her mouth with her hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "That wasn't fair. You don't control the weather." "It's okay," Marcus said, no irritation in his voice at all. "If I could control the weather, believe me, I would have already done it 4 years ago on that other plane counting the hours. I understand exactly what you're feeling, and I'm not going to be offended that you're yelling it at me." Hannah felt the tears come back this time, from shame as much as fear. "We're going to be on the ground soon," Marcus said, squeezing her hand a little tighter. "As soon as we land, you'll have signal again." The minutes that followed were the longest of her life, the plane dropping and climbing with every pocket of turbulence, rain hammering the fuselage. Come on," she whispered, staring at the screen with no signal over and over, phone gripped tight in her hands, imagining the worst. "I've said this exact thing to so many frightened family members," Hannah said with a broken laugh, "that waiting is the hardest part of taking care of someone. Harder than any procedure, any diagnosis. I never understood it from this side until right now, stuck in this metal can, unable to do anything but trust." "Now you know it from both sides," Marcus said. "That counts for something, too, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." "How did you make it through those 12 hours, Hannah asked, "without losing your mind?" "I didn't handle it well," Marcus admitted. "I yelled. I tried to negotiate with an airline supervisor who wasn't to blame for any of it. I offered money that wasn't going to do a thing just to get them to take off sooner. None of it worked. The only thing that worked in the end was going quiet and waiting, which is the thing I hate doing most in the world." "And right now," Hannah asked, "do you still hate waiting?" "Right now is different," Marcus said. "Right now, at least, I'm not alone." "Talk to me," Marcus said suddenly, "about anything. Don't let the silence win." "Why?" "Because I spent 12 hours in silence waiting for a plane to land with no one there to say anything to me," he said. "And that silence stayed inside me forever. I don't want that to happen to you, Hannah." Hands still trembling, she started talking. "The first time I put in an IV by myself," she said, "my hand was shaking so bad the head nurse had to hold my arm steady from behind like I was the patient. I was 22, and I thought they were going to fire me that same night. They didn't. She told me shaking was normal, that the strange thing would be never shaking at all, that the day I stopped being scared of making a mistake, that's the day I should really start worrying." The plane shook again, and Hannah gripped Marcus's hand tighter without fully noticing. "I've been doing this 6 years, and my hands still shake sometimes. I've just learned not to let it show." "Do you even sleep at home between shifts?" "Almost never," she admitted with a tired laugh. "A lot of nights I just crash in the break room on a cot that's barely even a cot because there's no point going back to an apartment where nobody's waiting for me. It's easier to be where I'm needed than where I'm supposed to be resting." "And who asks you how you're doing, Hannah? Not how's your patient, not how was your shift, but how are you?" The question caught her off guard so much that it took her a moment to answer. "No one, honestly," she said, her voice lower. "Not even me, hardly ever. I hadn't realized until tonight how much I've missed someone asking me that." "I'm listening," Marcus said with a simplicity that didn't invite argument. "Right now and any other time you want to tell me something, after tonight, if there's an after for the two of us. Hannah didn't know what to say, so she squeezed his hand tighter, letting the gesture say what the words still couldn't. Marcus listened to every word without letting go of her hand, and when the captain announced the final descent, Hannah felt like she wasn't facing this alone. The plane touched down with a hard thud. The moment the wheels stopped moving, Hannah's phone buzzed violently. 6 missed calls from the hospital. Hannah called back before the plane had even fully stopped, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. "Denver General, good evening," a tired voice answered. "This is Hannah Miller, daughter of Diane Miller. She's in the ICU. I got 6 calls." "One moment," the voice said. And the silence that followed, barely 15 seconds, felt to Hannah like an entire hour. "Ms. Miller, your mother had a complication about half an hour ago. The team is working on it right now. I'd recommend you get here as soon as possible." The line went dead. The next thing she knew, she was running across the wet tarmac toward an SUV already waiting with the engine running. "How much farther?" Hannah asked, eyes glued to the fogged-up window. 15 minutes if the rain lets us," the driver said. No one said anything else. "Turn right up here," Hannah kept saying, in the voice of a woman who knew every hospital by heart, even though she'd never before had to race to one for her own mother. "She's alive," Hannah repeated under her breath, almost like a prayer, hands clenched between her knees. "She has to be alive. She has to still be alive. It can't be that I ran this hard just to be too late." "She will be," Marcus said, taking her hand once more, though this time neither of them said anything about the gesture. "And if she's not when we get there, we're going to get the best team in this city to bring her back. I promise you, again." "That's 2 promises tonight," Hannah said with a trembling laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "And I plan on keeping both," Marcus said. "We're here." "Hang on," the driver said, taking the last curve toward the ER, hospital lights cutting through the rain. Hannah had her hand on the door handle before the vehicle even stopped. When they burst through the ER doors, the hallway looked like it had exploded into motion. A nurse pushing a crash cart, a red light flashing. "I need the intubation tray, now," someone shouted from down the hall. And to Hannah, for the first time that night, the chaos of the hospital sounded like familiar ground. "Is she okay?" Marcus asked, running beside her. "She has to be," Hannah said, still running. "There's no other option right now. I can fall apart later if I have to." "I know every one of these sounds," she told Marcus without breaking stride. The beeping of a monitor in alarm, the short, clipped orders of a doctor coordinating the team. "This is my exact world, my home turf. It's just that this time the patient behind those doors is my mom." "Family of Diane Miller," she told the woman at the front desk, almost breathless. "I'm her daughter." "Patient's full name and date of birth?" the woman asked, not looking up from the screen, following protocol even in the middle of chaos. "Diane Marie Miller, March 12th, Hannah said, her voice shaking with urgency. "Please tell me something, anything." "One moment," the woman said, typing. "There she is. She's in. That's her," Hannah managed to say, spotting 2 orderlies wheeling a gurney out of room 4 toward the resuscitation bay. A small framed woman on the gurney, gray hair plastered to her forehead.
"Mom?"
Hannah screamed, and the entire world shrank down to those few yards of hallway. "I'm her daughter. I'm a nurse. Let me go with her," Hannah shouted, lunging toward the gurney before anyone could stop her. "Let her through! Let her through!" one of the orderlies shouted. Hannah walked alongside the gurney, one hand gripping the rail, the other pulling out the stethoscope she always carried. There was no doctor there yet. Hannah, without breaking stride, pressed the stethoscope to her mother's chest and heard a heartbeat. Weak, irregular, but there. "You're still here," Hannah repeated, her voice reduced to a thread barely audible even to herself, breaking with relief and fear all at once. "You're still here, Mom." "Wait for me," Hannah managed to say, but the doors had already swung shut. She, who had spent 6 years walking other families up to that exact threshold, was the one left standing outside this time. I've said that same thing to so many families, she told Marcus, the stethoscope still hanging around her neck. Wait here, we'll update you in a moment. I never knew how much those words weighed from this side until right now. Marcus stepped closer, slowly, said nothing, and stood beside her, staring at the same closed door. What do I do now? Hannah asked, not taking her eyes off the door. I've spent 6 years knowing exactly what to say to people in this exact moment, and I don't have a single word for myself, not one. You don't have to say anything, Marcus said. Just breathe. I'll stay here and count the minutes with you if that helps. It helps, Hannah said, her voice breaking. It helps more than I can explain right now. A young doctor came out a few minutes later, his face tense, like someone who doesn't know how the night's going to end. Doctor, Hannah said, planting herself in front of him. I'm her daughter. I'm a nurse. Please tell me the truth, no sugarcoating. She had a serious arrhythmia, the doctor said. We stabilized her, but she lost her pulse for a few seconds before responding to treatment. She's unconscious. We can't guarantee anything yet. We're going to keep her under close observation for the next several hours. I've got you, you're not going down, Marcus said, catching her by the shoulders just in time, right as Hannah's knees buckled, keeping her from collapsing right there. Can I see her? Hannah asked, her voice breaking. Even just a minute. Not yet, the doctor said, genuine sympathy in his voice. As soon as we get her fully stabilized and moved to a room, we'll let you in, I promise. We just need a little more time. That little more time sounded to Hannah like the cruelest phrase of the entire night after running so hard not to lose another minute. I got here too late, she said, her voice broken, tears falling freely now. Too late, just like him, with his own mom. And I know exactly what to do for any other patient, and with my own, all I could do was listen to her heartbeat for 1 second with my own stethoscope before they took her away. I couldn't do anything. You listened to her, Marcus said, holding her steady. You heard her alive, Hannah. That is not nothing. That's exactly what you did. You heard her alive. I heard her alive, Hannah repeated quietly. That's already something. The hallway kept moving at its own urgent pace, indifferent to the fact that for her the whole world had shrunk down to the door her mother was fighting behind. Marcus stood in the middle of the hallway, watching the doors swing shut behind the gurney, watching Hannah, left on the other side, staring at them. I don't know what to tell you, he said, stepping closer. I don't know you beyond a few hours on a plane and a storm we rode out together, but there is nothing in this world that matters more to me right now than doing something for you. Then stay, Hannah said, not looking away from the door. That's all. I can't ask for more right now. She pulled out her phone and dialed. This is Marcus Whitfield, he said when someone answered. I need to speak with the director of Denver General Hospital right now. It's an emergency. Let it actually be good for something for once, Marcus muttered, hanging up, not sure if he'd done the right thing or if he'd just used the weight of his own name for something that actually mattered. 10 minutes later, the head of cardiology himself walked into the hallway, followed by 2 nurses and a cart loaded with equipment Hannah had never seen there before. Dr. Patel, the man introduced himself, extending his hand to Hannah. I was told the patient is an immediate family member of hospital staff. We're going to examine her with the full team right now. Hannah, still with the stethoscope around her neck, looked back at Marcus, standing in the hallway, phone still in hand. Did you do this? She asked, unable to fully believe it. I made 1 phone call, Marcus said, shrugging like it was nothing. The doctor's the one doing the rest. I just know who to call when time matters more than normal protocol. You didn't have to. Hannah, he cut her off, stepping closer, taking both her hands this time without any hesitation. I promised you back in that hangar that we'd get here in time. I'm not about to stand around doing nothing when we're this close. While the team worked on the other side of the glass, Marcus stepped back toward the far end of the hallway and dialed a number he didn't call often. Marcus, it's 3 a.m, his sister answered, her voice thick with sleep and surprise. Nothing bad happened, for once, he said. I'm at a hospital in Denver with someone I met tonight. Her mom had a cardiac arrest. We're waiting on her. And why are you calling me at this hour to tell me that? Because 4 years ago you were the one who stayed, Marcus said, his voice lower. And I got there too late. This time I'm not going anywhere until this is over. I wanted someone to know. Besides me. His sister was quiet for a second before answering. That's the closest to yourself I've heard you sound in years, she said. Okay. Go be there. Keep me posted. And Marcus, I'm glad. He hung up and went back to Hannah sitting beside her while the next 2 hours passed between monitors and the low voices of doctors. Coffee? A night nurse asked Renee, according to her badge, offering her one from the vending machine that Hannah hadn't asked for, but accepted with a nod, too worn out for anything else. You in the field too? Renee asked, nodding at the stethoscope. ER downtown, Hannah said. Then you already know these are the worst hours, Renee said with the quiet solidarity of someone who's spent the same hours on the other side of that door caring instead of waiting. But you should also know Dr. Patel is one of the best we've got. If anyone's going to pull her through, it's him. Have you worked with him before? Hannah asked. 10 years, Renee said. He's not the type to give up easy on a heart. If there's a way to pull her through tonight, he'll find it. I'm right over there if you need anything, Renee said, heading back to her station. Hannah was left alone with the silence of the hallway and the flicker of a fluorescent light that had needed changing for months. It's strange, Hannah said after a while, looking down at her own empty hands. No gloves, no chart, nothing to do with them. I've spent 6 years knowing exactly what to do in moments like this, and right now I don't even know where to put my hands. Nobody knows where to put their hands when it's their turn to wait, Marcus said, sitting beside her, eyes fixed on the same closed door. I didn't either that night 4 years ago. I spent the whole time pacing up and down the hallway until a nurse, tired of watching me, practically forced me into a chair and told me pacing wasn't going to change anything, that the only thing I could do was wait with some dignity. And I didn't manage it, not that night, Marcus admitted. But this time I think I will with you. How do you know it's different this time? Hannah asked. I don't know for sure, Marcus said. But this time I'm not pacing alone. This time I've got someone whose hand I'm not letting go of until the doctor walks out. That already makes it different. He called Mrs. Alvarez, who picked up on the first ring, awake at that hour, purely out of worry. How is she? The neighbor asked, no greeting first. Stable, for now, Hannah said. Thank you for calling me, Mrs. Alvarez. Thank you for staying with her until the ambulance got there. That's what neighbors are for, sweetheart, Mrs. Alvarez said. Call me any time, any hour. Can I sit? Marcus asked when she hung up. He didn't wait for more than a wordless gesture, just his hand extended, waiting for her to decide if she wanted to take it. Hannah took it. Thank you, she said, resting her head on his shoulder, exhausted down to her bones. Not for the plane, for staying. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus said, squeezing her hand. Not tonight, and not the nights after this one, if you'll let me. And your work? Hannah asked, a hint of a tired smile. Didn't you have some important meeting where you were headed? I rescheduled it from the car, Marcus said. Turns out meetings can move, mothers can't. Hannah closed her eyes, letting the weight of the whole night, the counter, the plane, the storm, settle somewhere she didn't have to carry alone. Rest for a minute, Marcus murmured, watching her eyes close against his shoulder. At some point she fell asleep and woke with a start, covered in his jacket, panicked she'd missed some update. Nothing happened, Marcus said quietly, watching her wake up. You slept 20 minutes, that's all. Nobody's come out yet. You shouldn't have let me fall asleep, Hannah said, sitting up abruptly, embarrassed. What if they'd come out with news? Then I would have, Marcus said simply. I was awake. If they'd come out, I would have woken you. Somebody had to take care of you for a while, Hannah. Just for tonight, let it be me. Thank you for staying awake, she said, still wrapped in his jacket. I don't even remember the last time somebody took care of me instead of the other way around. She looked at him, feeling something deep inside loosen, the strange new certainty that for one night at least, she didn't have to keep watch alone. Past midnight, the door opened and Dr. Patel came out with a different expression, softer, tired, in the good way. "She is stabilized," he said. "Her heart's responding well. It's still too soon to celebrate completely, but tonight at least, the worst part has passed." Hannah walked into the room slowly, her heart pounding as hard as her mother's monitor had been just hours from stopping altogether. She paused a second in the doorway, letting the steady beeping finish convincing her that her mother was still there, still breathing on her own. "Sinus rhythm 82, Hannah murmured, reading the monitor out of habit. "She's stable." It was the first monitor reading of her entire career that made her cry with relief instead of brace for the worst. Diane opened her eyes slowly, confused, and when her gaze found Hannah's, something in her face lit up with real recognition. "My girl," she said, her voice barely a thread but clear. "You came." "Of course I came, Mom," Hannah said, sitting beside the bed, taking her hand with the same careful touch as always, but no clinical distance now, just the pure care of a daughter. "I was never going to leave you alone. Mrs. Alvarez told me you weren't going to make the flight," Diane murmured, eyes still heavy. "That you didn't have money for the ticket." "I didn't," Hannah admitted with a shaky smile, "but somebody helped me get here." "And the 6 a.m. flight?" Diane asked with a hint of humor despite everything. "The one you could actually afford?" "We let that one go," Hannah said, laughing for the first time all night. "It left without me, and I don't regret it one bit." Diane turned her head slightly toward the door, where Marcus waited, discreet, not wanting to intrude on a moment that wasn't fully his. "And who's he?" Diane asked. "Marcus," Hannah said, and for the first time all night, saying his name out loud gave her a different kind of warmth than everything else had. "A stranger who heard me crying in an airport and decided he wasn't going to leave me there alone." "Not such a stranger anymore," Marcus said from the doorway with a tired but genuine smile. "And how exactly does a stranger end up flying all the way to Denver with my daughter?" Diane asked, a thread of mischief in her voice, despite everything her body had been through that night, her daughter crying in an airport. "Ma'am," Marcus said, stepping closer, "I had a plain and no good reason not to share it. Everything else she did on her own, including listening to your heart with her own stethoscope before any doctor even got there. I just came along." "That's not true," Hannah said, shaking her head. "You got the head of cardiology here in 10 minutes in the middle of the night with a full team. Not just anyone can do that." "Looks like you two take good care of each other," Diane said with a weak but clear smile, looking between them both. "I can already see that, and I've only been awake half an hour." "You always told me taking care of someone was the highest form of loving them, Mon," Hannah said, her voice breaking. "I never thought someone would show me that before I could show it to them." "Then you've learned what it took me an entire lifetime to teach you," Diane said, closing her eyes for a moment, exhausted but at peace. "That taking care of someone isn't just about giving. It's also letting yourself be taken care of when it's your turn. It took me 70 years to fully understand that." "You learned it in one night." "Dr. Patel mentioned something else, ma'am," Marcus said carefully. "Now that you're stable, this might be a good time to finally treat that arrhythmia with whatever specialist you choose, even out of state if that's what it takes. I can cover whatever's needed and fly you back and forth as many times as it takes." Diane looked at him for a long moment, weighing something bigger than just the offer. "I carried so much pride over this," she finally said. "And it turns out all I needed was someone as stubborn as me pushing from the right direction." She turned to Hannah. "Tell him yes, sweetheart. Tell him I don't want to keep giving you these scares." "Yes, Mom," Hannah said, eyes filling with tears again, this time pure relief. "We're getting you the surgery. No more excuses." "Come here, both of you," Diane said. "Don't be shy." When Marcus reached the bedside, she took his hand too, joining all three together in a gesture that broke Hannah's heart. "Thank you for bringing her," Diane said, "and for staying." "There's nothing to thank me for, man." Marcus said, his voice breaking for the first time all night. Your daughter reminded me tonight of something I'd spent 4 years trying to forget, that there's always time if you don't waste it. He went quiet for a second and then, still holding Diane's hand, added something he hadn't planned on saying out loud. I didn't get to say that to my own mom in time, he said. So I'm going to say it to you even though I've barely known you. I'm so glad you're still here, Diane. And I don't plan on wasting whatever time I get to spend near this family if you'll both let me. Diane squeezed his hand without the strength to say much more, but her eyes said everything her voice couldn't anymore. Hannah, eyes full of tears, took off her stethoscope, the armor she never dared set down, and handed it to Marcus without a word. Hold this for me, she said finally, her voice broken but steady, just for tonight. Just while I hug my mom without having to keep watch over anything else. It'll be right here, Marcus said, taking the stethoscope with the same care he'd taken her suitcase back at the airport hours ago. Thank you for everything, Hannah whispered, already leaning over the bed to hug her mother, long, deep, unhurried, letting someone else hold for just that night what she'd never once let herself set down. Diane stroked her hair, her hand, weak but steady, letting the beeping of the monitor be the only voice that mattered. The night had ended well. There, my girl, Diane murmured into her daughter's hair. You made it. I'm here, Hannah said. Hannah didn't answer with words, just held on tighter, letting the tears fall wherever they wanted to fall, no rush at all to wipe them away this time. When she finally pulled back from her mother, she turned toward the door where Marcus still stood, the stethoscope still in his hands. Can I have that back? She asked, wiping her face with the back of her hand. On one condition, Marcus said. Next time somebody asks who you are, don't just say a nurse. Tell them you're also the woman who wouldn't let a total stranger leave an airport without her. That's a lot to fit into one sentence, Hannah said, laughing. No tears this time. We've got time to shorten it, Marcus said. A whole lifetime if you want. Outside, the Denver sky was starting to lighten. In the hallway, a man who hours earlier had been a complete stranger was still standing there, holding Hannah's hand, like it was the most important thing anyone had ever trusted him with. I brought you all some of this to get your strength back, Mrs. Alvarez said, arriving mid-morning with a pot of soup. Thank you, Mrs. Alvarez, Hannah said, resting her head on her shoulder for a moment. I don't know what I'd do without you. She sat with Hannah for a while, holding her hand, no more words needed. 2 months later, Diane was walking around her own house again, stubborn as ever. I'm walking on my own, sweetheart. I'm not made of glass, she kept telling her. I know, Mom, Hannah would answer. She flew out to see her every couple of weeks now, no longer on last-minute flights, but on the very same plane that had saved her life. Does this plane still surprise you? Marcus asked her one of those afternoons, watching her look out the window. Every time, Hannah said. But it doesn't surprise me anymore that you're here with me. That part already feels normal. And your dad, she asked after a while, still alone in that big house? He's coming over for dinner on Sunday, Marcus said with a smile that still surprised even him. I told him about you and Diane, and for the first time in 4 years, he asked me if he could come, instead of me having to ask him. That's good, Hannah said, squeezing his hand. It's more than good, Marcus said. It's exactly what this night with the two of you taught me how to ask for. One afternoon, back at that same gate B8, Hannah saw a young woman arguing with the airline employee over a missed flight and money she didn't have. Hannah didn't think twice. Is everything okay? She asked, walking up, stethoscope as always tucked in her bag, peeking out through the open zipper. I missed my connection, the woman said, surprised that anyone had stopped to ask, her voice breaking. And I don't have a way to pay for another ticket. I have to get to my sister's wedding. Hannah looked at Marcus, who had already pulled out his phone, a smile on his face that didn't need any words. We'll go together, Hannah said to the woman, taking her hand, just the way it had been taken for her that first night. We've got a plane and plenty of time before yours leaves anyway. Why are you doing this? The woman asked, unable to believe it, wiping away tears. Because someone did it for us first, Hannah said. And that kind of debt, you don't pay it back. You pass it on. Marcus, a step behind, watched her do exactly what he had done for her 2 months before. You're getting good at that line, he told her once the woman walked away to call her sister with the good news. We'll go together. I stole it from you, you know that? And I'm going to keep stealing it for whoever needs it, Hannah said, taking his hand. Starting with you. Every time it counts.